front. The organization Mass Resistance is helping people to stop the tyrannical LGBT Equality Act now in Congress. Yes, this really caught my attention when I came across this over there at stevequail.com. It's from massresistance.org. You can look this up. So they would rewrite the nation's civil rights laws to force compliance with radical homosexual and transgender agenda in all facets of life. This equates true, quote, civil rights, unquote, with sexual perversion. So, in fact, there's a book called Gay and Lesbian History for Kids. And if the Equality Act passes, it will be illegal to remove this book from a school, library, or civics class. So what's going on? Well, of course, they always like to do things without a lot of publication when they know that most of America probably would say no to this. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because if you are in agreement and would say no, then you need to write your congressman or call your congressman and let them know how you feel about Bill H.R. 5. Yes, the U.S. House of Representatives is poised to pass the most extreme and tyrannical national LGBT law in history. Bill H.R. 5, let me say that again, Bill H.R. 5, deceitfully titled the Equality Act. Let me say that again, Equality Act, would radically rewrite the nation's civil rights laws to force the homosexual and transgender agendas into the lives of every citizen, with oppressive penalties for those who refuse. So, here's what the bill is talking about. We've all seen the horrors that have already happened following the various state and local pro-LGBT laws, along with similar Obama-era federal directives. So bakers, photographers, and others being sued, businesses forced to hire transgenders, schools forced to allow boys to play on girls' sports teams and change in girls' locker rooms, a teacher fired for refusing to use a transgender student's preferred pronouns, courts overruling parents' objections to their minor child's transition treatments, aggressive LGBT indoctrination required in K through 12 schools, hospitals, and businesses with government contracts, a New York City law stipulating heavy fines for misgendering someone. But that's just the beginning. The National LGBT Lobby has crafted an extremely tyrannical bill that includes all the issues above and much more, all woven into the federal civil rights laws. Nothing like this has ever been seen anywhere. So here's the dangers of the Equality Act. It would force compliance with or compliance of the radical and, it says in the article, and lunatic LGBT agenda into every person's life, in businesses, public accommodations, jury selection, schools, hospitals and clinics, social life, and even churches. So your assemblies and your congregations, you're not immune. It would empower the Department of Justice to enforce the act in federal courts. It writes into federal law radical concepts like sexual orientation and gender identity, and creates a protected class for people with psychiatric disorder called gender dysphoria. Yep, they're protected. The bill is purposely and loosely written to ensure latitudes for activist judges. It gives only minimal, vague definitions for the term sexual orientation and gender identity, guaranteeing that legal chaos will ensue. For example, many radicals consider pedophilia as sexual orientation, which could end up becoming protected. What other perverted practices might be protected? prostitution, BDSM, that's bondage and sadomasochism, bestiality, all of this crazy stuff. The legal definition of sex, that is the biological category of male or female, would be altered to include undefined sexual orientation and gender identity. Everywhere the word sex appears on or in federal non-discrimination law. The act hijacks the legitimate civil rights movement by incorporating the LGBT agenda into the nation's civil rights laws. Thus, it equates the civil rights of racial minorities based on immutable characteristics with chosen sexual perversions. This is extremely offensive to Black Americans who fought so hard for their rights. Yet members of Congress seem to have no problem with this immoral question. And then the act would acknowledge same-sex marriage in official federal law rather than just leaving it to a dishonest Supreme Court decision like the Dred Scott and abortion rulings. In one curious section of the bill, which expands the list of public accommodations covered by anti-discrimination law, we are informed many places of public accommodation recognize the economic imperatives to offer goods and services to as many consumers as possible. This passage could be used to protect transgender men and women's bathrooms and locker rooms, BDSM orgies in hotels, or pedophile conferences. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm reading it as it is, but this bill's talking about. So if this type of stuff offends you, then you need to understand that this is the reality of the world we're living in. Let's go on. Goodbye to freedom of religion on LGBT issues. Many have noted that religious speech critical of sexual orientation and gender identity could be considered unlawful discrimination. Not even churches, that is your synagogues, your congregations, your assemblies, your kahals, will be exempt, as they could be considered public accommodations. That is a place of establishment that provides gathering. Any establishment that provides a good service or program. So, going on, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has made this bill a top priority to pass this year. It has 240 co-sponsors among the U.S. House members, including several Republicans. Over 150 major U.S. corporations, as well as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, are aggressively supporting it. So, I mean, look at this. This is how serious it is. And that's why mass resistance, as they got into the fight early. It says congressional Democrats, and I'm going to say demon-inspired Democrats, had introduced a somewhat weaker version of H.R. 5 in previous years, but it got no traction under the Republican House majority this year with the demon-inspired Democrats in control again. Nancy Pelosi had promised to pass a supercharged version of it. Yeah, that was me inserting demon-inspired because that's what I believe it is. And it is clear to everyone that the Equality Act would be a huge threat to Christians, that is, to any Bible-believing group, and would criminalize their beliefs on LGBT issues. That's why I wanted to bring this up. That's why I put this in, and this is something that I would suggest. Look at the link below, go to the article, find out more, do some research, and then get a hold of your congressman, get a hold of your senator, and let them know what your opinion is, because this really stomps on the rights of believers and anyone that associate themselves with having any type of biblical beliefs. Some things to be considering, some things that are going on, and most of this, most people don't even realize it's going on behind the scenes. So something that we need to be praying about, but prayer needs to have action. So that's it for this one. Thank you.